Namaskar. Um, my name is Sanjay Sharma, Rikhiram, and I come from family of the great instrument maker Rikhi Ram. That was my grandfather who started manufacturing instruments or making instruments and learned the art under the tutelage of Ramzan Khan Sahab and Sher Mohammed. So he started in Lahore, which now is in Pakistan, way back in 1920s. And then the tradition of instrument making was very deeply inclined, and he wanted to make the best and learn the art to the perfection. So that was the main streamline of his work. And then he, after partition, came to India, which is New Delhi, and he started his production or making instrument, carrying the tradition in New Delhi. And my father, late Pandit Bishan Das Sharma, he was the only son, and he adapted. He learned all the art of instrument making from him, and which he continued. And my grandfather passed away in 1961, and since then my father continued, and then I was born, and then I continued. I learned the art of instrument making under my father. Very intensive training was given to me, and it was not just a training on instrument, because I was born in the family in such a way that the maestros, like great as Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, Ustad Khan Sahab, to Amjad Ali Khan Sahab, to Pandit Jasraj ji. So everyone was like, regular to the work, and they got their instrument made by my father, and my father repairing and adjusting and tweaking their instruments from small bits to the back. So it was a very close relationship. So learning this art was a default process for me, because I don't know when I started working with the tools on the instrument, but as if I remember, like officially, my father started training me when I was 15 years old, and where actually the instrument was given. Otherwise, I was just fiddling around with wood and how we carve out, how we cut the wood up, and so it means it's a very very tedious process. And so my father, he was disciple of Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and so he initially put me into vocal music, vocal training. So I had an official vocal teacher where he would come, and then I would learn how and which notes are to identify the notes, because it's a very very important process for an instrument builder or a maker to understand the notations, the scale, the sound, and tonality. So that was like the scratch for me, where the page has to be opened on instrument making. And then later I was put into playing the instrument. So my interest was on tabla, which I always felt good with rhythm, but then in the same time, the string instruments were our main speciality. My grandfather made the best tanpuras, the best harmoniums as well. So even the keyboards were astonishingly very very brilliantly made by him, and my grandfather would know like 3 or 4 different ways of making the same instrument. So he was a genius, and what Rikhi Ram brand speaks about it in volumes is because of his hard work and the foundation stone that he laid. And then that experience came to my father, and my father's experience along with my grandfather came to the third generation, which I am trying to build and make that worthy enough for the musicians or the music aspirants around the world. So this learning process went on to I started learning sitar, and when I was young, I used to go with my father. Like my father was invited by Pandit ji and Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and So he would have his sitar looked upon, and my father and I'm holding the toolbox of his, going around and seeing what's been done and how my father comes out with the answer what has been asked upon. So that's how the culture of instrument making, and it's just not the making the instrument. So which I will explain later. How what are the parts and how we make the instrument. After making an instrument, it's like make a human body, and you put all the organs, and putting the brain is the main job. How that thing is going to operate. So that brain is the bridge, and how you set the bridge up, like the bridge we call Jawari. So one has to be very specific on how the sound, because that is where all these musicians are different in their sound perspective, because Pandit Ravi Shankarji has his own sound pattern. Ustad Khan Sahab had his own sound pattern, so as all the other greatest greats. So very deeply one has to understand, if you are working in a parameter that will derive to that conclusion of sound, or will satisfy the musician to perfection. So that is like something you have in your mind, and then you just explain us, and we bring it out from the word. So it's like many interviews. I was asked, how do you describe your craftsmanship? I said, it's like making a baby. You don't know what wood is going to speak out as. So you have to culture. You have to keep base things in mind, how you will operate on that. So that comes with experience. So experience is not that if I, as a fresher, would like to learn how to make instruments, but it's it's a gradual process. You have to know the basics and what went wrong, what the experiments, they always go wrong, right? So it's not like bang perfect at one time. So with the lineage, or the legacy of three generations, so that was actually taken care of. So I just had to just go on, and knowingly that, okay, if I do this, it's going to go wrong. So let's not do that, and let's focus on this things first. So born in a family like that gives you an advantage. And that is about my family. And now I have my sons, and they are also learning the same art, and they are musicians as well. My younger son, Rishabh, he plays sitar, and he learned with Pandit Ravi Shankarji, of course, and because it was Panditji's decision to decide, like, I want to teach him sitar, so that he could become whatever knowledge I have, I can pass it over. So that is about me and my family, and our music. So now I'm here to talk about the sitar, and sitar is an Indian, very popular in the world, as you know. It's a very important instrument of our Indian music, and especially North Indian music, we call Hindustani music. And sitar was actually, it was originated way back. We know about the Vedas, and we have seen sculptures in Ajanta Ellora caves that sitar similar looking instruments have been ordered by on the sculptures, and it was basically played for the gods and the temples, and later it was played for the court musicians. So it's about sitar is like we used to name, or in about 13th or 14th centuries, it was called a Tritantri Veena. So Tritantri Veena is like, it comes from a family of Veena, because if you see these, the sitar has two gourds. So all the Veenas, so to talk about Veena, we have three Veenas that we are aware of, and which are widely played on this generations, or in 20th century, which is Rudra Veena, that Lord Shiva's instrument, actually, which was gifted to Mata Parvati, as we read in the Vedas. So and then we have the Vichitra Veena, which is played with a slide without the frets. It's a fretless instrument with the same two big chords on it. and then we have obviously Saraswati Veena, which is the Tanjore Veena we know as in the South India. So these basically, sitar is from a Veena family, and when the Amir Khusro Khan. So it's a big debatable subject, but sitar name came from Se. Se means three in Persia. So three was Tritantri is like three. The Veena is Tritantri Veena. So three was very hard for them to speak. So they named it Se. Se means three in Persian language. So and tar is strings, so three strings. It used to have three strings in all, and later, in 18th century onwards, so sitar was developed, and every musician or whoever picked up on playing sitar, they changed the setup or they brought the strings. So I was in interaction with Pandit Ravi Shankarji, and I asked him. I said, Guruji, tell me about the sitar, because you've been around almost a century now, and what do you think like the sitar came from? And he said, beta, this is like a very very tedious subject, but as of I know, that's to my knowledge, he said that there was Amir Khusro in 13th century at the Alauddin Khilji time. So he actually named this as sitar. So maybe it was in India and then taken over or brought back through him. And but it was Khusro Khan, according to Guruji or Panditji, that he said, who brought this sitar. And Amir Khusro's contribution to the sitar was to bring the strings from left to right, the main playing string. So he just swapped the strings up. So that is what we know. And then, so the changes came upon when, Pandit Ravi Shankarji, he was following a Mahir Gharana tradition, which is like more of a Drupad Gaiki Ang. And then we have a Khayal Gaiki Ang, which was, more popularized by great Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab. So then to play that kind of music, so there were certain requirements they would need, and they brought upon changes on those sitars. So now let me just go on the construction part, and then I will just elaborate, what these two different models would be like. So I will pick up on this structure of a sitar, which is I've just recently made, and so this particular sitar is a replica of what my grandfather used to make in 1920s to 30s, 70s, and this model was up until 70s. So the hallmark of this sitar is like if you see here, this particular portion from here, this end to this, is a pumpkin. It's a gourd. It's not an edible gourd, but it's specially grown during my grandfather's time. It was imported from Africa, and then later, when the instrument became popular and they wanted the demand became more extensive, then the seeds were sown in India, and then in Maharashtra there's a place called Pandharpur where we grow these pumpkins. So as of construction of sitar, we would need a pumpkin like a full gourd, which would be depending on what size of sitar you want to make. So it could be 42 inches, it could be 45, depending on how big or small soundboard you want. Okay, and this one here is from this end to this end is our soundboard. Soundboard we call tabli. Okay, and this is tumba, right? And this is the main resonating part of this sitar. And the tumba and tabli is attached to this portion here, which you will see. There's a joint right here and joint up till here. And this is called neck heel, which is gullu in our language. So this gullu is a neck heel, so it's like a junction box where the strength of the neck, the soundboard, and the tumba, the pumpkin, rests. So it's the pumpkin gets glued here with the bamboo nails so that it doesn't move out, and then the soundboard is stick to the tumba, where you will hold the transmission of this sound from top soundboard to the tumba, and this right here is a hollow neck. So this portion, everything is hollow, right? And this neck is into two pieces. So this is the top called patta, and this is called the dandi. So the dandi has a neck joint. So there is a neck joint which we hollow it out, and then the neck goes into the neck heel, which is the gulu, and then we screw it and create an angle so that when we are bending the string, so how much mean means bending, we will require. So there is a degree of angle that we would need to get here. And this is the hollow neck. So, and the patta gets over it, so it's a little bit carved in, so that when you have the frets on, so and bending the string, so you don't scrape the lower part, and so give the enough elevation to the string, and you can bend the string. And look at here. So this is like, then we do the decorations according to whatever musician or however it's required to make as a model. So then everything is glued back, and so more or so, the sound. Now I was talking about Pandit Ravi Shankar ji's style of sitar and Vilayat Khan Sahib's style of sitar. So the main difference is the soundboard, how the soundboard will be different on their sitar to the smaller one. So the smaller ones is like, I'm talking about the Vilayat Khan Sahib, because the size is a little bit smaller, because this is more of a bigger Drupad Gaiki, which will have bass strings on it. So you will have 4 melody strings and like big thick strings to give an extra octave lower. So for that you need a bigger neck size and bigger soundboard and bigger pumpkin as well, so as to the resonation and the sustain would come out. So you have to calculate what is the gauge of this soundboard you have to keep. So you have to, I usually do a sand test, just tap and see, where the maximum vibrating point is, and do the tap test of listening to the frequency of the word. So that frequency will also depend on how thick the sound, this pumpkin is, because everything changes the bass and the treble of the instrument. So it's a very, very technical instrument. It's if you talk, it'll be hours and hours to explain how we can get a best out of it. But as of the structure, I've told you, and then comes, after making the structure, we have the materials that's required to make as a fitting job on the sitar. So which would be, I'll pick the sitar, which is all set I was playing, and so these are the frets, this is the bridge, and this piece here, I must show you, is the tail piece. It's called anchor, and we call langot. So it used to be, in a different material. It was bone or basically deer horn. So now we have these synthetics, and but metals are more preferable because they hold the tuning and the strength better. So, and this is the bridge I was talking about, the brain of the sitar. And this bridge, over the period of time, like when my grandfather was making those sitars, he was using ivory, which got banned later, and then we have to come out with some other option. So then the other option became the deer horn. So, so this is a stack horn bridge, which has the wooden feet stick onto it to make the height small or bigger. So similarly we have this the horn third bridge. Third bridge is sympathetic strings. So sympathetic strings are basically put to provide the delay effect. So delay means like to sustain the sound. So if I play on the top, so the lower strings vibrate to the tuning that we have done, so it matches to it, so it gives a delay and elongates the notes. So basically, our Indian music is all about sustaining the notes, whether you're singing, so how long breath you hold on a particular note makes you a better singer. So similarly, a better instrument is like if it has volume and it has the sustain on it with the tone quality that is required. So that will depend on how you set and file the bridge on the sitar. And various other parts are like this top nut, it's made from bone, so it's camel bone, it's buffalo bone. So depending on whatever material you can get, so it could be deer horn, it could be ivory, if it's available. So, but you need a very hard stuff to put here so that doesn't crack, doesn't make squeaky sound when the strings run over it. So these are the pegs. So the pegs are we call kuti. So if you see, this is the raw peg, and we will have to drill a hole in a slope. So this is tapered. So when the hole on the top and the bottom, they are matched together, and then it holds the pegs in a very tight position. So after putting, like, there are 7 strings on the top on Pandit Ravi Shankarji style, and then 13 sympathetics compared to 6 top strings on Vlad Kasab style, and then 12 or 11 or 12 tarab pegs on it. So the tarab pegs are usually smaller than the main pegs. So this is how the tarab pegs look like. So it's also tapered, a little bit thinner, and it goes all the way through. And here is the second gourd. Second gourd I was talking about, like, because it has a surbahar effect, it has a veena effect, the tone, the depth. So when you have a big bass strings playing, so I'll just play a bit for you so that you will understand how this resonator is like a surround sound, and it's a speaker for a person or the musician, the artist who's playing the sitar. Otherwise, all the projection is going towards that side. But here, for musician, you need some resonation and speaker out. So this gives you the sound. So when I play the bass string, so you will actually need this to have more resonation from the instrument. And the sympathetics, if you hear, will give the elongated string sound, and it just takes over the music. And it's very important to see and gauge what a musician wants, because there are musicians have a different technique of playing, different weight on their fingers, hand, and you can't just make one instrument and make everybody happy. So similar. So it will be customized instrument. Instrument building is just not getting the wood and making a structure look the way it is, but it is to be played and played to the taste and the style of the musician who wants to have that instrument made that way. So that was it's a very very tedious technique, and you will only learn this technique when you sit with the maestros themselves, because they are the ones who are performers. And when a performer is performing in a concert, and then he knows, okay, what is his limitations on the sitar or their instrument, but when they're trying to get something out from the instrument which is not coming out, like for example in the olden sitar, like 1920s to late 60s, so the bending of the notes were like maybe 2 notes maximum, and then later it started, people wanted musician wanted, like they have to have more bending capacity. So then I had to make this frets in a little bit more curvy shape, so that when we bend, so we cover more distance and we get extra elongated note, so to reach. So their job became very easy from pulling a note from here to here. So they can pull the same note from here 1 or 2 frets behind. So which will give you lesser stress on the fingers. So let me just sum out my brief talk here about the instrument making. Is that these 2 styles are more popular, but they are newer musicians with their newer ideas. So I keep working with them, and whatever Anushka Shankar, she has her different sitar size is different, and then I introduced internal microphone on her sitar because she was playing a lot of fusion and world music, and she wanted that. And in 2010, I was the first person to introduce a microphonic sitar for her, and then that followed with other electric sitars, like now it's named as Sitar. So that is also my innovation, and there are different versions of it, and which has a a pickup and microphone. So then sitar has come over ages, and you will see everybody playing and using different set size or sitars, and I wish everyone, whoever are playing instruments, success, and then if they come out with more ideas, I'll be the most happiest person to solve them for. All right, thank you so much, Namaskar. So, and then I will just tell you how these frets were, the curvature I was talking about. So this is the actual fret. It's called Gillette wire, and it's number 6 gauge. And that's how the neck will decide, how much bigger or smaller you want the frets as. So, and these small buttons are all bone pieces right here. So the string goes through, and then the strings are very special because every musician has its own, as I told you, strength and weight on the string, how much to pull, how much hard they want. So different gauges has to be procured, and that will determine, how bright or small it would be. So any other construction part is all about seasoning the wood, and you have good seasoned quality of wood, you can make best instruments for your life. So I wish you very, very successful playing, and whoever learns a bit from this, and I'll take a leave. Thank you so much. Namaste.